Let's start with your first book that I became aware of, which was The Enemies Within, and you were talking about there basically the enemies within the government. And unfortunately, I think the bad news story is that the communists have, since the time of the KGB and the Soviet Union, infiltrated our government, and now it's Chinese communists primarily infiltrating. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it is. They are the leaders of the world communist movement now, but you shouldn't forget that Russia is their political, economic, and military ally, that they all work together in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is basically the old Warsaw Pact with a few more extra countries added to it and a few less ones in Eastern Europe. So the Chinese are leading the charge. Now, you think about this. Okay, you don't like President Trump. He's giving you a hard time on trade and numerous other things. So what are you going to do? Are you going to get into a multi-billion-dollar trade war, which you may lose? Are you going to get into a multi-million-dollar shooting war, which you could also lose? Or are you going to spend a few $1,000,000 buying up American politicians and communist parties?
No, of course.
What are you going to do? You only need to buy 3 or 4 up in the Senate to make a majority, to get your way. You only need to buy a few congressmen in the House, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, or the head of the submarine technology section in the Armed Services Committee. You buy up strategic people, and many of these people already have communist connections. You know, Mark, you got 2 people on the Armed Services Committee right now who are very close to the Communist Party USA. Mark Vasey out of Dallas-Fort Worth area, who serves on the Armed Services Committee, and the guy from Connecticut, Joe Courtney, who serves on the Submarine Technology Subcommittee. Now, the Chinese are challenging America on submarines, yet you've got a Communist Party affiliate serving on the Submarine Technology Subcommittee of the Armed Services Committee. I believe he chairs it. So, and the other thing, you start a virus. All these are cheap, but they achieve the same purpose: destroy the president, destroy the American economy, and build your own power. Now they can come in at the end of this and buy up all these cheap American properties and businesses. They will clean up if we allow them to do that.
Well, Trevor, I know, these aren't just conjectures. These aren't just guesses that you're having. Your research. I mean, I've got one of your books here, and it is, this one's Barack Obama and the Enemies Within. Look how thick it is with all the notes. How do you come to the conclusion that someone's been bought up by the Chinese? What does your research tell you, and how do you find that out?
Well, it's the Chinese, the Iranians. See, I say there's about 100 members of the U.S. House and 20 members of the US Senate who are so enmeshed with the Chinese, the Cubans, the Russians, the North Koreans, or the Venezuelans, or the local communist groups, Democratic Socialists of America, Liberation Road, Communist Party USA, they couldn't pass an FBI background check to drive a school bus. But there are no background checks in Congress. Zero. Do you think the Chinese know this? Do you think the Iranians know this? Do you think maybe they might try and exploit it? Okay. So what I do is I study these people. I have a website called KeyWiki, Keywiki. It has 127,000 files on it, all cross-linked, works like Wikipedia. So you type in, say, Mark Warner, senator from Virginia, and you look at his ties to Narcosec, which is a pro-North Korean group. You look at his ties to the Russians. You look at his ties to several radical Islamic groups. You look at Senator Chris Murphy, who served for Connecticut, who serves on the the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Big man attacking Trump over Russia, right? He had a Communist Party member on his staff. He has had several meetings with the local Connecticut Communist Party on a regular basis. He goes to their events. He follows their line. As I said, a party member on his staff. And he is also very heavily involved in CARE and ISNA, which are 2 Muslim Brotherhood fronts operating out of Connecticut, who both also work with the local Communist Party. I've got pages and pages of documentary evidence on these guys' connections. They do it because they don't care, because the media is not going to scrutinize them. The FBI doesn't dare to touch them, and there are no background checks.